Today we're going to talk about how Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 follows the storytelling framework. I go by the name Jesso Singh, and if you're new to this channel, Storyception is a series of videos where I'm going to take you through some of my favorite films, new and old, and also take requests from you guys, the fans, to see if we can reverse engineer the storytelling and learn just why we love these movies so much.
This is Storyception.
So this past Mother's Day, I took my mom and family to the theaters to watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 in IMAX, and we enjoyed the hell out of that film. It was heartwarming, funny, and painful, and it was just the perfect mix of a Mother's Day gift. And because it was such a good movie, it's the perfect one to dive into and see how it follows the storytelling framework, because believe me, it does. Ladies and gentlemen, I have gathered 23 of the best screenwriting techniques used by Hollywood writers and filmmakers, and I've woven them together into what I call a storytelling framework. Now, I'm going to reverse engineer the storytelling in this film using that framework, kind of like a detective, to figure out why it works so darn well and why people just fell in love with this movie. Before we start, big spoiler alert, as we'll be discussing every single moment in this story in great detail. So go watch the film yourself first, and you're welcome to come join us when you're ready. With that, let's begin with Act 1. According to the framework, Act 1 is where we establish the main character, their ordinary world, and a strong desire which sets them off onto an adventure. The very first scene in this film was striking. In the opening image, we saw a baby rocket raccoon caged up with other raccoons, exactly like lab rats, waiting to be experimented on, until we see a mysterious hand reaching in to grab him. This eerie first image perfectly sets up the dire and dark tone of the film and leaves us with a question. What's that all about? Next, we speak on the first sequence. Number 1. Ordinary world. We're introduced to the team that was originally set up in the earlier installments with a few new key members like Cosmo the dog and Kraglin, the new guy with the flying arrow. We find them on Nowhere, a floating city inside the head of a large but dead celestial god. Here they're taking care of the locals, living together like a family, yet one member, Chris Pratt's character, Star-Lord, is in deep grief, mourning the loss of his love, Gamora, back in Infinity War. And the whole team is trying to figure out ways that they can make him feel better. And believe me, they had some wacky ideas. Next, an important character is introduced. Flying from deep, dark space, we see Adam Warlock, with an absolute killer guitar riff playing in the background. He breaks into Rocket's room and attempts to kidnap him. In the ongoing scuffle, he fights the other Guardians too, but ultimately, Rocket is left severely injured with a blast to his chest. Adam Warlock escapes, but the team is left trying to heal Rocket with an advanced med pack. But sadly, it's not working. There's some kind of implant inside of Rocket that resists the medical device. This implant requires a passkey to switch off, which the Guardians don't have. And without it, they could lose Rocket forever. This becomes their call to adventure. Saving Rocket is an abrupt but crucial mission now, and the Guardians are prepared to do whatever is necessary. But can you believe it though? Just a few minutes in and we already have a life or death situation. That's one of the most compelling parts of this film. This first setup stage starts that journey of pain right away. So let's get into stage number 2, the new situation. Here the main character must deal with the out of ordinary. It's when they have to leave their comfort zone, leave their home behind, and enter an unfamiliar territory because they've been called upon to do so. So the Guardians have to leave Nowhere and go to the headquarters of a bioengineering firm called the Corp. And here they hope to find this hidden passkey to help save their friend. This bit of information is the catalyst for them leaving their home. In the sequence that follows, we see the team calling upon the Ravagers, another ragtag group of space repo men. Amongst them is an alternate version of Gamora, who, though alive, shares no memories with Star-Lord. And this is a big pull on the heartstrings for Peter. We see them break into the headquarters of Orgocorp, execute their scrappy plan, and walk out not with the passkey, but rather a file recording that is at least related to Rocket's past. When they return to their ship, they experience their stunning surprise number one. They play this file and are stunned and overwhelmed by what they witness. The recording has live accounts of the experimentations done on Rocket, and it's agonizing for them to even watch the torture that Rocket was put through in the name of science. This gives them the much-needed lead for what's next. They must find the location of the High Evolutionary, who is the founder and operator of Orgocorp, along with his henchmen, for it is them that hold the key to saving Rocket now. So there's a bit of a switcheroo on the order here, but sequence number 3, Refusal of the Call, takes place, with Gamora being the character to warn the others against going on this perilous mission of tracking down the High Evolutionary, who is widely known as a man of great wealth and power in this part of the universe. But the Guardians are determined, because nothing matters more than saving Rocket. Nothing. They're even prepared to face off against the High Evolutionary on what could be a suicide mission and a clear trap set for them. And this, ladies and gentlemen, becomes the break into Act 2. This is the moment where the main character makes the choice to sign up for the adventure. It's when they take that leap into this beyond, knowing that there's no going back to their old reality, but they're still courageous enough to go ahead. So Act 1 is in the books, with saving Rocket's life being the ultimate desire and goal of this story. Now begins Act 2. In this phase, the hero must surrender something near and dear to them in order to achieve their goal, because nothing in life is earned without a heavy price paid. I think we all have experienced that part. So let's see how this plays out. One thing we haven't got into thus far is this ongoing backstory of Rocket's past that's running in parallel with the present day story. So this is the B story, and it's taking place in flashback sequences inside of Rocket's mind. That's beat number 7 that we've officially hit. More on that in a second though. Going back to the sequences, we've also hit number 4, meeting the mentor. Because in present day, Gamora is now forced to tag along with the team as they head for the High Evolutionary's home base. Even though she's depicted as a ruthless, hot-headed space warrior, being around the Guardians and seeing how they live like family is slowly melting away her cold heart. And now in the flashbacks, we see a young Rocket sitting in the lap of the High Evolutionary himself, as they discussed advanced mathematics, and also the vision for a new and improved world, Counter-Earth. So the High Evolutionary begins as a mentor figure for Rocket, being the one who experimented on him and made him into a talking raccoon. Rocket is then seen back in his cage with his other friends, who brainstorm what they're going to do in this new world, which in their knowledge is being built for them. And they also choose real names for themselves in a very naive and childlike way. Rocket officially calls himself Rocket here, because he saw one taking off in the sky a little bit earlier. And we also meet Lila Otter, Floor Bunny, and Teefs the Walrus. And we hear probably my favorite line in this film, delivered so eloquently by Bradley Cooper.
Into the forever and beautiful sky.
So as our story unfolds, the Guardians have now made it to Counter-Earth's orbit. This marks the crucial crossing of the first threshold, because now they've entered the enemy territory, fully aware that a showdown with the High Evolutionary awaits them. But before that showdown, let's have some fun and games, which is a key part of our story. Story beat number 8. Counter-Earth, though, is like a wild mirror image of our Earth, with some mind-bending changes. Picture this: the Statue of Liberty has transformed into the High Evolutionary, cradling a monkey in his arm. It's a symbol of how species here have evolved differently thanks to the High Evolutionary. What's even more ridiculous, the entire population of this world is a mix of humanoid animal hybrids, speaking an unrecognizable unrecognizable language. When the Guardians touch ground in a suburb of these people, madness ensues. These creatures gather curiously around them, and a young meerkat-looking little girl playfully tosses a basketball at Drax. But Drax, well, he dodgeball throws it right back to her face, and that sends the crowd into a frenzy. Soon, a bat-like lady leads the Guardians indoors, where bizarre music fills the air, which I later learned is an eccentric Japanese track. Funny enough. And everything inside looks like Star-Lord's original home in Missouri. This scene is our hero's wild introduction to this bizarre duplicated world. And the thing that I love about this is these guys are a space traveling cosmic team, and they literally live inside the head of a dead celestial god. But this normal looking living room that perfectly resembles the inside of a traditional suburban American home is jarring to them. They don't know how to conduct themselves. It's about exploring something totally new, totally out of ordinary, that makes this the perfect fun and games story beat. And there's an exciting novelty to this unique place, where the audience, us, and our heroes come together before things take a more serious turn. And boy, do they. The team splits here, with one half staying behind to protect Rocket, and the other half, led by Star-Lord, heading to the High Evolutionary's ship. As they walk in, they come face to face with this authoritarian figure, who simply puts up a finger and tells them to wait. Instantly, we're taken to a flashback inside Rocket's memories, and this is going to be the most painful moment, so be ready to reminisce it. Rocket has learned that he is only a test subject, like his other friends, that once the High Evolutionary gets what he wants, they'll be put to death, and he won't bat an eye for them. So Rocket hurries back to his friends, quickly develops a passkey from artifacts that he's hidden inside his cage, and he tells his friends the truth and explains the reality of their existence, that a wasteful death is the only thing that lies ahead of them if they don't leave right now. He unlocks the door for Lila Otter, and she happily embraces him, only to hear a gunshot, and Lila Otter being the victim of it. From behind, the sneaky High Evolutionary shoots and murders Lila Otter, and Rocket is seen stunned and in total disarray. He screams out in heartbreak and agony, probably the most painful scream I have ever heard in a film or anywhere else. You could feel it like a stab wound right into the heart. In that intensity, Rocket leaps onto the High Evolutionary's face, and he badly disfigures him with his claws. Unfortunately, behind him, the High Evolutionary soldiers have already murdered Teeves and Floor as well. So in a moment of panic, him being the only one left, he makes a run for it, and he escapes into space with a small stolen ship. Hence, sequence number 6. Test, allies, and enemies. Rocket finally discovers his true enemy in the High Evolutionary, and he must take up this challenge to escape that captivity. But sadly, he's too bare bones in front of the High Evolutionary's power, and he loses all his friends in that struggle. So we return back to the present day. Star-Lord and Groot grow impatient, and they quickly identify the henchman that holds the passkey to Rocket. The High Evolutionary then begins an argument with Star-Lord, explaining his ultimate mission of creating a perfect species in a perfect world. But Star-Lord deservedly reminds him that this counter-Earth is nothing more than a parallel of his own lack of morality and darkness. The High Evolutionary agrees with his statement, and he cold-heartedly triggers a kill switch to detonate this entire planet, so he can restart his experiments fresh all over again. The midpoint is then the ensuing battle between Star-Lord, Groot, and the High Evolutionary's team. This is the turning point of the story, because they learn for once and for all that the High Evolutionary will not give them what they want, and seeing the henchman right in front of them, they go after him. In a different location, we also see one of the High Evolutionary's goons, that big pig machine, trying to kidnap an unconscious Rocket and bring him back to the High Evolutionary. Here we witness 2 more turning points. That too inside of our side characters. For one, Gamora invokes a sense of loyalty inside of her, and she battles the pig warrior to save Rocket. Secondly, Adam Warlock was seen arriving with his mother on the planet a bit earlier, and he comes after Rocket as well. He enters the Guardian's ship and kills the pig warrior before he can do more damage. But sadly, it's too late when he realizes that this planet is exploding, and he's unable to save his mother, who dies in the explosion. This stands as a turning point for Adam too, because till now he depended on his mother for his life's purpose. Now he has nothing. Cutting back to Star-Lord and Groot, they obtain the passkey from the henchman, and Gamora flies over to save them with the ship. They hurry inside to disengage the implant inside of Rocket and apply a med pack this time. But it might be just too late, as Rocket falls deeper and deeper into limbo. So this, guys, is sequence number 7, Approach to the Innermost Cave. It's the moment when the main character must pull all the willpower they have from within to make final preparations to achieve their goal. In an interesting dynamic, we see Rocket and Star-Lord both experience this. For Rocket, he sees Lila and his early friends in a heavenly vision. They reach out to him, addressing that they are in a good place. Up above, Star-Lord is beside Rocket on the medical table, and he is visibly stressed and watching Rocket very closely, making sure that he stays alive. Star-Lord has to pull all his willpower and love for his Guardian's family if he wishes not to lose another person close to him, like his mother, like Gamora, and even Yondu, his mentor and friend. So we move into the life or death moment, the Ordeal moment. As Rocket's heartbeat continues to slip, he envisions Lila and requests to go with her. On the surface, Rocket's heartbeat flattens, and the machines confirm that he is passed. Gamora, too, tries to comfort Peter and explain the reality of the situation, but Star-Lord screams out in agony, and yet he refuses to quit on Rocket. He removes the med pack and performs a precordial thump on Rocket to retrieve his heartbeat. As that's happening, Rocket continues to request that he reunite with his friends, but Lila refuses. She tells him that he still has a greater mission to fulfill, that he must stay with his new family for now. Instantly, Rocket's consciousness is transported back into his body, and Star-Lord and the Guardians witness their reward. Rocket is back alive and conscious, and he begins his signature comedic banter. Star-Lord and the team quickly give Rocket a big embrace, and tears of joy replace the misery that they just felt a few moments ago. Again, this was the reward moment, the final sequence of Act 2, where the main character has surrendered something close to them. In this case, Star-Lord and the Guardians sacrificed their own safety and health to return Rocket back to consciousness, and they were rewarded for that sacrifice. But the struggle is not over yet. Remember how half the team separated a few scenes back? Well, Drax, Nebula, and Mantis are aboard the High Evolutionary ship as they attempted to rescue Star-Lord and Groot. Little did they know, those two already escaped. So in the stunning surprise number 2, as Star-Lord and Rocket hear the pager in their ship, Nebula is contacting them. She's delighted to hear Rocket's good health, but also disgruntled at the realization that they're now stuck in the enemy ship without purpose. This moment of shock forces Star-Lord's half of the team to take that final leap into chaos, make that climactic choice of tracking down the High Evolutionary once again and rescuing their friends. Drax, Nebula, and Mantis also make a pivotal choice when facing this crisis. They meet a new species of children inside of cages in the High Evolutionary's ship. Now they're determined to save any and all kinds of life forms stuck in the vicious experiments of this madman, and will do everything they can to save them. And that is the leap into Act 3. Act 3 represents the transformation phase. Our main character must begin embarking on their path back home, but deal with significant obstacles on the way there. Obstacles that will require them to use all the resources and the lessons learned throughout this journey to defeat the ultimate enemy on their return back to their ordinary world. So the mission is now clear for the Guardians. With Rocket active and back on the team, they're going to need to do what they do best: kick ass and save the galaxy. The final mission is to rescue their teammates, take down the High Evolutionary once and for all, and get back to nowhere. That's our sequence number 10. road back home. So they call in all their forces, the entirety of Nowhere making the move and participating in this upcoming battle. With help from Nowhere's armada, the Guardians find Drax, Nebula, and Mantis, and they learn that the already ship is still full with experimented groups. Now they must make the choice: leaving the scene or staying and doing the right thing by freeing all these beings from further experimentation and torture. So, in a moment of transformation, Rocket determines that he's done running away. Unlike he's been doing since the first time he escaped, now he's going to face his fears, face the enemy, and face the High Evolutionary head on. And so the entire Guardians are with him on that, and they stand behind him. And despite Gamora's initial resentment towards it, she makes the choice to ultimately join the fight with the Guardians. What follows is a fantastic fight sequence with No Sleep Till Brooklyn playing in the background. Probably one of the better choreographed fight scenes I've seen on screen in the MCU. It was amazing. Then, leading the last of the children off the already ship, Rocket sees a dark hallway where his past cell was, and he stops. He looks inside a cage to find more creatures crawling around. Creatures that look just like him. He reads the tag on the door, and he realizes that he was a Rocket all along. Now, we've witnessed years of this in the greater MCU, including this whole Guardians trilogy. The running gag has been various characters claiming Rocket to be all kinds of things, from rabbits to Build-A-Bears, and he always denies every single one of them. But now, this is the revelation for him. He finally accepts his reality, and he bundles up the baby raccoons to save them. But the danger still lurks. The High Evolutionary arrives from behind to once again attack Rocket. He gives Rocket an abusive earful, and he threatens to shoot him successfully this time. But now, Rocket's not alone. This time, the Guardians have Rocket's back, and they all combine their efforts to attack and damage the High Evolutionary's advanced tech armor. Gamora, in her ruthless nature, slowly rips his face mask off, and the High Evolutionary is embarrassed to have his secret revealed. The damage done by Rocket originally has forever disfigured him, and he walks around wearing a mask, hiding his own imperfections. After a moment of almost pulling the trigger, Rocket makes a balanced decision to spare the High Evolutionary's life. This time, he wants to send the High Evolutionary to prison for his crimes. And this is number 11, Resurrection. This final test signifies Rocket's final transformation. Not only has he discovered his true identity as a raccoon and stopped running from his past, this time he's chosen a path of justice over violence, having learned from past mistakes that led to the loss of his childhood friends. But that's not the last of it. In the following scenes, we witness the massive already ship exploding in space. And while escaping the burning ship, Star-Lord fails to jump off in time and is found freezing to his death in the cold, zero-atmosphere space. In his moment of transformation, Adam Warlock flies in to save Star-Lord in a visual reminiscent of the Creation of Adam painting. I love this part because it might feel cliche, but it's poetic and fitting, as we didn't actually witness Adam Warlock being born on screen and releasing from his egg. But this is his true birth as a mega powerful, but ultimately a hero. And he hugs the Guardians team in their final celebration, and Star-Lord too slowly heals. But we're not done yet. There's some loose threads that need to be tied up, and a need to hit sequence number 12, Return with the Elixir. We see Gamora give Peter a friendly goodbye, appreciating her time spent with him, but making it clear that they have their own separate paths. And Peter too finally agrees, moving forward from his grief of his lost version of Gamora. Then every member of the Guardians team gathers around in their home on Nowhere and expresses that they've made a newfound decision about their individual futures. Even though they're a team and they'll be family for life, they decide to go their separate ways for now and each pursue different quests. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Elixir. Because throughout this film, we witnessed the Guardians team clinging on to each other because they had nothing besides this family. But they all slowly learned throughout this journey that each of them have something valuable to give to the greater world, a unique purpose to fulfill outside of being a guardian of the galaxy. So, to each their own. Nebula and Drax agree to stay on Nowhere and lead the inhabitants, all these new refugees, in this little city of theirs. Mantis takes her 3 alien monsters, who are called Abelisks, and embark on a new self-discovery adventure in space. Gamora is off with the Ravagers, which is really her version of a family. Peter proclaims that he too has somewhere to be and loose ends to tie up, and he gives up his position as captain of the ship. And he and the rest of the crew honorably appoint Rocket as new lead, and Rocket reluctantly but appreciatively accepts. So we then see Star-Lord stop running from his own painful past, and he lands back in Missouri, the state on Earth, not some wild duplicate this time, in order to reunite with his grandfather and heal their relationship. I think by far that was my favorite ending in this film, because to be honest, I walked into this thinking that one of these characters had to die, because it was a commonality in the first 2 Guardians films with Groot and Yondu. But this was truly a beautiful moment, because even though Peter is no longer a spacefaring Guardian, he's finally landed back into the normal life that he never had. And that's a full circle moment for him. And that for me was the perfect end to his story. So in the final image, we see that the Guardians have a new leader in Rocket, and they have some new teammates too, including Adam Warlock and one of the alien children that they saved. We see them once again fulfilling their duties, saving the galaxy, one small town at a time, with this new squad once again dancing to Come and Get Your Love by Redbone that began this whole saga in the first place. So to give a quick wrap up of this exercise, let's summarize everything we saw play out in this film using Dan Harmon's story circle, which is the last key component of this framework. You need go. We established with the very first image that more than anything, this was Rocket's story, but the entire team of the Guardians were the hero on this journey. So you, the Guardians, need to help save Rocket after he's been critically injured by Adam Warlock. And they must go to obtain a secret passkey from a big corporation that has ties to Rocket's past. Search, find, take. The Guardians begin their search in the OrgoCorp headquarters, but soon learn that the High Evolutionary has already sent out a henchman to collect that passkey. So now they must find the High Evolutionary himself and meet him on his own turf, Counter-Earth. So they take a leap of faith, quite literally, onto the surface of an exploding planet and take the passkey once and for all. Return, change. But it's a combination of Star-Lord's sheer willpower and guidance from Rocket's childhood friends that he's able to return from the clutches of death. Rocket proves that he is a changed man, or raccoon, when he chooses not to act in violence. He leaves the High Evolutionary's judgment to be given by the courts of law. And so the team returns back to Nowhere, but all with a newfound appreciation for one another and themselves as individuals. The Guardians of the Galaxy disband in amicable fashion, each setting out on a path of self-discovery and tying up loose ends. Most notably, Rocket is appointed new leader of a new Guardians team, and Peter Quill, Star-Lord, travels back to Earth to heal his relationship with his grandfather. And so our story ends with a new Guardians team, including Adam Warlock, Rocket, Groot, Kraglin, a superpowered alien child, and Cosmo the dog, guarding the galaxy and blasting Come and Get Your Love as they do it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 follows the storytelling framework. So we basically reverse engineered the story, figured out why the journey played out like it did, and we figured out why so many of you loved this film in the first place. That is the magic of this framework. So if you've grabbed the storytelling framework from the link below and decided to give this exercise a try out for yourself, and if you found things differently, drop your opinions below, because I'm all ears and ready for a friendly debate. So until next time, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, and comment below your thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Tell me why. And we'll meet again in the next Storyception. Salute.